What's going on, everybody? It is Sunday at the Alabama, Texas A&M, and Bryant-Denny in Tuscaloosa. You're rocking and rolling on the Bama ELITE Podcast. Touchdown, Alabama Magazine, with the three biggest men in the business in the room right now. Justin Smith, the lead scout and recruiting analyst for TDA. Patrick Dow, breaking news reporter for TDA. Yours truly, Stephen M. Smith. And before we get started, people, if you can't check out the Bama ELITE every Thursday and Sunday, though we encourage you to do this because it's an outstanding product, but if you can't check us out, go to the Big Game College Football Podcast Network and audio stream for the best college football coverage in the South. We want you to check out the Bama ELITE, absolutely. But if you can't, Big Game College Football Podcast Network and audio stream is where you need to go. But the Crimson Tide getting a 24-20 win over A&M in a paid sellout crowd, over 100,000 people, and they were there from the opening kick to the final whistle. What a football game that was. And starting off with you, Pat. Man, Pat, how you feeling, man?
I'm doing good today, Steven. You know, the Patriots won today, so I'm much more happier than I was a couple weeks ago. But yeah, no, it was a really, I mean, probably from Alabama fans' perspective, it was a really difficult, really stressful game. Didn't help the blood pressure, but it was really an incredible atmosphere to be a part of in there. And you know, it really shows that there's nothing much that can beat Bryant-Denny Stadium when it's really kicking like that.
Absolutely. So, Justin, you got a chance to watch this as well. How are you feeling on your end from watching the matchup?
Yeah, it definitely was a great game by both teams. I know Alabama fans probably wanted Alabama to dominate Texas A&M. It didn't go that way, but I know I wasn't there, but I've been inside Bryant-Denny Stadium for games like that. I think it was the last time Alabama played Tennessee when I was a student at Alabama. Was a pretty good game like that. So I'm pretty sure the stadium was rocking. No better feeling than just hearing that crowd when big moments like that happen. And I'm pretty sure that was a big moment at the end of that game. So yeah, it was a very exciting game to watch. Excited to dive into it.
Absolutely, guys. So let's get into this right now. The big thing was we saw Bryce Young did dress out. He did take the field in pregame warmups, but he did not start. The start went to Jalen Milroe, a second-year quarterback out of Texas. And after watching him against Arkansas the week prior, a lot of fans entered this game with, hey, if Alabama has the right game plan, if Bill O'Brien schemes this up correctly, Milroe could have a lot of success out there. And for Milroe, it was tough on him. You're replacing the Heisman Trophy winner in a full game start. Did some good things. Milroe did throw 3 touchdown passes. Let's get that out the way. He did some good things, but there were some mistakes he made that he can correct. Had the interception there, which he can correct that. Didn't have a whole lot of bad passes. I know on the two sacks he took, he got hit late, did not protect the football like he would have liked to, had 2 lost fumbles. There were some hiccups there for Milroe, but you can't really clown him or down him for that because, once again, first start, major game, taking over for Bryce Young, a lot of nerves and jitters there. Some may say, did Bill O'Brien put Milroe in the best situation to be successful? Then there's that. But I felt like all in all, there was some good from Milroe. There were some things he can improve on. The big thing is Alabama looking forward to having Bryce Young back, this week against Tennessee. But starting off with you, Pat, you were watching this with me inside Bryant-Denny. What did you see from your vantage point on Milroe?
Yeah, so I kind of just think Jalen Milroe looked like a young backup quarterback, and there's nothing wrong with that. He did some good things, and he had a couple, the guy struggled with some ball security there with a couple fumbles and the interception downfield. And I just don't think he's not quite consistent enough passing down the field just yet. I know people want to point the finger at Bill O'Brien. I can't really get on him for having to, work with a young backup quarterback and just throw him into the fire against a very, very, honestly, a very talented Texas A&M team. They're always have a lot of capable players on their team. So I think Alabama did the best they could. And honestly, like, the game was close because Alabama kind of allowed it to be. It was just because it felt like Texas A&M took advantage of every single Alabama mistake led to points for Texas A&M. So, I think there was a lot of inconsistent things on offense, but I think having Bryce Young back kind of clears up a lot of that.
Yeah, and I think as far as Milroe's performance, it was as up and down as it could be. Had really good moments and really bad moments. Going back to the touchdown where he hit Cameron Latu, that was a perfect pass, put it where only Latu could get it. A good pass to hit him on that touchdown. A Jermaine Burton touchdown reception, that was another dot. So he had some good moments, but he had some bad moments with those fumbles, specifically that interception. It was bad all over the board. He shouldn't have thrown the football, and it was horribly underthrown. It looked as if the safety it looked as if it was an interception as soon as you saw that he was throwing the football. So yeah, that interception was really bad. And that goes back to him being consistently accurate. And I think that was one of the things I talked about when watching him go up against Arkansas. I wasn't sure how much Alabama trusted him passing the football because he's still developing, he's still growing. And I think at this stage, he definitely still has some work to do. I know in a lot of ways we are sort of, when you watch Alabama, you sort of have this memory of what happened last. And I think Bryce Young is on your memory. And you have to keep in mind that Bryce Young was a pretty polished guy coming out of Mater Dei High School. I don't think Jalen Milroe was that coming out of Katy, Texas. That's one thing for sure. That is why Bryce Young had a little bit more of an easier transition as far as coming on the field and showing a lot of promise early. I think Jalen Milroe was still a work in progress, definitely a better runner than passer as an overall quarterback right now, but I still feel that he has some potential. So he definitely has to fix some things, continues to work on being consistently accurate, because if he wants that job next year, he has to make some improvements for sure. But as far as his skill set is concerned, making those mistakes, holding on to the football, you kind of understand it, because it was like in that moment, like, do I hold it? Do I pass it? Do I run it? That still been a young quarterback that unsure feeling, I'm pretty sure that played a role in him holding on to the football a little bit too long and leading into those fumbles. But you can't do that. That is probably a big reason why Texas A&M stayed in the game for a good amount of the game, just based on how Alabama's defense was playing. So definitely feel Jalen Milroe has some things to work on, up and down as you could be.
Now, one of the coolest moments, guys, from the game, and we all saw this, Bryce Young running to find Milroe. They find each other. Bryce, big hug, big dap, a lot of love right there. And it was very Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa-esque out there in that moment. And just, we know how much of a competitor Bryce Young is. He wants to play. He wants to be out there. But at the same time, he understands this is a big opportunity for Jalen Milroe, a big chance for my brother, for my teammate to go out here and lead this team. And I want to show my support. And seeing Bryce do that and have that moment with Milroe, very awesome, very fun, extremely cool there. But guys, Jahmyr Gibbs, back-to-back 100-yard games for him. I mean, he just continues to show he's looking like a top 15 draft pick next year. And the quickness, the power, the ability, there were times where A&M was able to bottle him up somewhat, but then there were still moments, Justin, where, Jahmyr Gibbs was able to pick his way and still get the yards that he wants. Just a special player. And when you look at the comparisons of Alvin Kamara, when you look at the comparisons to Reggie Bush, you see how real it is when you watch Jahmyr Gibbs out there.
Yeah, he definitely continues to look explosive. You can just tell he's just getting more comfortable being Alabama's running back. Each week seems if he's becoming a better runner, because at the beginning of the season, you can make an argument that he was a better receiver, probably the best receiver Alabama had early on in the season, basically as a safety valve. But he's continued to try to gain some confidence on the ground as far as being a running back. But I think Alabama's offensive line has played a big role in that. Man, Seth McLaughlin is opening up some big holes.
There is a reason why the line plays a lot better when 56 is out there. No offense to 71, but when 56 is out there, you could tell a major difference.
Yeah, he's a special offensive lineman, a guy who has some nastiness to him. He's one of those offensive linemen where you watch the play, it looks as if he has a highlight because he seems to make the block that springboards Gibbs into the open field. So I think it is a mix of course, Gibbs. I don't think he needs is a little bit of a hole. He can break free and show off that explosiveness, that quick burst that he has. Seems as if his burst and acceleration just starts to happen as soon as he receives the football. But I think Alabama's offensive line, from a run blocking perspective, is starting to come together. I don't think they were bad from a pass blocking situation either. I just feel Jalen Murrow probably held onto the football a little bit too long when he was basically strip sacked on those plays.
Yeah, but just hopping in on Jahmyr Gibbs here. I mean, we talked about before the season. If the offensive line can just give him a little crease, then he can really hurt a defense. And he's really starting to look like that running back that we talked about during the preseason, that Alvin Kamara type of guy. And he's really looking like a complete back now. I mean, back-to-back 100-yard games. And he's really, I mean, but him and Milrow on the ground, that was really Alabama's only source of consistent offense. And, you know, if they had take away some of the fumbles and all of the turnovers, and they would have bled the clock out just no problem, because they were really, really moving the ball well on the ground. And you got to give credit to the offensive lines, and like Seth McLaughlin too. I mean, that guy is physical, man. He can move anybody that's in front of him. And I really think, honestly, the only thing that's probably holding him back from being a full-time starter is probably the inconsistent snaps, because I'm sure fans can notice on TV too. It's every once in a while it kind of looks like, oh, that was like a little low, or that's a little high, it was a little hard. So once he gets that down, I don't see him moving back to the bench, if I'm being honest.
It just looks like this offensive line, the last 2 weeks, you're seeing more of Eric Wolford imprint what this offensive line is in terms of his coaching style and his coaching technique there. But guys, defensively for Alabama, defense balled out. This was a great game from Pete Golding. Really great game from him. And Devon A-Chain, coming to the matchup, he was the guy you had to shut down, because a season ago, A-Chain had a big impact on the matchup. This time around, A-Chain did not have a big impact, whatsoever. And you got to give the entire defense a lot of credit. If there was a stat for almost sacks, Will Anderson almost had 8 sacks in the game. I mean, he had his hand all over Haynes King, just couldn't quite get him down, but a team high 8 quarterback hurries. I mean, Dallas Turner, Chris Braswell combined for 3 sacks. Jaheim Otis was out there blowing stuff up. I mean, Deontay Lawson, who played in place of Jalen Moody, who had a bruised kidney. Hopefully Moody will be back this week. But Deontay Lawson really played well. I mean, Brian Branch was just everywhere, all over the field. And even down to Terrion Arnold, yes, he gave up some plays, but he also had some big moments too. The one play where I thought he was about to have the second pick, didn't quite get it there, but at the end made the big play to seal the game. I mean, Pat, defensively, those dudes played their hearts out.
Yeah, I would like to note that I held on to my Pete Golding stock from years ago, and I'm seeing the return now on it. I mean, this defense is. I mean, I'm not going to make any sort of comparisons of defenses in the past, because I think that's a little bit silly. But I mean, it's really good. It's the best it's been in a few years, and really, I think we saw why a lot of teams don't throw the ball deep against Alabama, because they can't contain this pass rush. Whether we mentioned Will Anderson, 8 quarterback hurries during the game. I mean, he's getting back there no problem. Then Dallas Turner had a couple sacks. Chris Braswell, we really saw that, 3-headed monster, and that package really, really worked well for Alabama. They got consistent pressure all night long, and the guys on the back end are playing much better too. And Brian Branch he completely balled out against A&M yesterday. And like we mentioned before, A&M's really only source of offense came when Alabama kind of handed it to them. Even though Alabama, you saw that it was 24-20, they only gave 20 points. I mean, really, without some of the boneheaded mistakes, they might have scored much less than that. So this Alabama defense is playing the best football right now in terms of the team.
Yeah, that defense looked really good. So many guys stepped up. Chris Broswell making some plays, getting consistent pressure on Texas A&M's quarterback. Yeah, Will Anderson, of course, Brian Branch, Terry Arnold. Toa made a couple of plays. The play that probably sticks out in my mind the most was how he played that option that Texas A&M ran. Did a great job of basically containing the quarterback and depend on his teammates to get the pitch guy when Texas A&M quarterback made the pitch. So yeah, the defense looked really solid. And going back to what you said, Pat, you said you kept your stock in Pete Golding, and yeah, it was a great game plan by him. It seems specifically the way that they designed a way to get Will Anderson open and allowed him to create pressure, because we talked about it throughout the season. Everyone knows who Will Anderson is. We're going to chip him. We're going to slide our protection. We're going to do whatever we can do in our disposal to try to stop him from impacting the game. So Pete Golding and Nick Saban developed a game plan where they were going to do some things to get Will Anderson in a situation to get after the quarterback more effectively, and he was able to do it. Even going back to what Jimbo Fisher said after the game, he said the defensive front is really good. He said they did everything. They said they chipped guys. They moved their offensive line. They slid their offensive line, but nothing was seeming to work just based on how Alabama's game plan was designed to get Will Anderson in a position to be more effective. So I think going forward, there'll most likely be something that Alabama incorporates into their defensive game plan moving forward in the season for sure. Yeah, really like what I've seen out of Alabama's secondary. Brian Branch, I think that is the best tackling performance we've seen from a defensive back probably since Minkah Fitzpatrick has been. I don't think we've seen a defensive back have a good of a tackling performance at stat, making tackles in the open field, in space, making effective tackles. Wasn't big hits, just making good tackles. So I really like what I've seen out of Brian Branch. And Terry Arnold, yeah, similar to Miro in a way, had some really good and had some really bad, especially on that play where he got beat off the line of scrimmage. Happens as a defensive back, great release by a great wide receiver. He did catch up to him, but just out of position at the end. He's continued to grow, so he showed some good things and some bad things as well. So I'm really liking what I'm seeing out of Alabama's defense. I think it's a good time for them to be showing what they are showing heading into the rest of the season.
Special teams had some good moments and some rough ones also. I thought James Burnett played well. Burnett had some punch, drop inside the 20 there. Will Reichert, not his night, had 2 missed field goals, one from 45 yards where it looked like it was good. And a lot of the fans were like, it was good, but the officials, no, it's not. And we're kind of confused there. He went 1 for 3, and normally we don't see Reichert go 1 for 3, but it is what it is. Sometimes you're going to have a rough night or an off night, but it was a game where you face some adversity. And Coach Saban talked about it in the post-game presser. He said, hey, if these things don't happen, the game's not as close. If these things don't happen, we don't have the adversity that we had to face. But since these things happen, now we have to battle through some stuff. And Saban talked about how proud he was to see the relentlessness of this team. And going to you, Justin, after having a game like this against Texas, week 2, where stuff went wrong, you had to battle through it to win it. Against Arkansas, you have your quarterback go down, and you have to find a way to win it. And now here we go again with A&M. What does that do to a confidence of a team, Justin, where Bama had this last year. Now they have that this year where there's adversity where it may have been self-inflicted adversity, but Bama found a way to get through it, Justin.
Yeah, I think this is a huge confidence boost specifically for the defensive side of football. I'm not sure if I can say this is a huge confidence booster for the offense because those things did happen. It wasn't the best offensive game. I do feel they do have some confidence in the fact that Bryce Young was able to rest his shoulder and he'll most likely come back a little bit more healthier compared to if he did play against Texas A&M. So as far as the way that defense played, I think the defense has a lot of confidence, specifically those edge rushers in that defensive front containing Texas A&M's running game, who has a explosive running back, which you said heading into this game, you cannot let him get into the open field because that is where he is the most dangerous compared to Jahmyr Gibbs, one of those explosive type of backs. And Alabama's defense front was able to contain him, put consistent pressure on Texas A&M's quarterback. So I think when you take a look at that defense, I think this game is a huge confidence booster for them. Just looking at some of the things heading into that matchup, they knew that they were not going to have Bryce Young. They knew that the offense probably could struggle because you would probably have to lean on Jalen Miro. As soon as the Aggies were able to figure out Miro and just be confident in the fact that he's not the best passer at this point in his development, it seemed as if that's when the Aggies defense gained some confidence, and Alabama's defense had to match that, and it basically became a defensive game. So I think Alabama's defense gains a lot of confidence from this performance.
Yeah, and honestly, I think from a team's perspective, I think the whole team actually should get a bit of a boost of confidence because, look, they often struggle with turnovers, missed field goals, and, look, Will Riker was kind of due for a stinker here. He hasn't had a bad game in like 2 years, so he was kind of due to have a little bit of a rough one. But the missed field goals, the turnovers, not having your Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, and they still won. And they had a goal line stand at the 2, and they were able to get out of there with a win. So this kind of shows they don't want to. I know Nick Saban definitely doesn't want this to be a consistent week in and week out thing to show up with your B- game and try to win. But it does show that, look, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong in these games, and a lot of stuff can be really difficult at times, especially in the SEC. But they can still gut out these wins. It was led by their defense this week.
Well, folks, the biggest plus for Alabama in the game was the crowd. I mean, we knew coming in that every fan had this game circled, but Justin Pat, the last time I saw Tuscaloosa this congested in terms of people, the 2019 Bama LSU game, former President Trump was in T-Town for that matchup. This time around, I mean, it was ants on a bone on campus. You could feel the juice inside the stadium. Over 100,000 people yelling, jumping, screaming. Nobody left. Hotel prices were sky high. There was a point in the fourth quarter. A&M gets called for 2 false starts because of the crowd noise. I mean, Pat. We were both, Pat, in that environment. The fans were on edge all night.
I'm not even kidding. You could make a really good argument that the fans might have won the game for Alabama. It was specifically that sequence right there where A&M had 2 false starts in a row. It was like 4th and 3, and they were driving to tie the game. And the crowd was as loud as I've heard it. And A&M had back-to-back false, I believe it was false starts, not a delay game. Yeah, back-to-back false starts. And it backed them up and forced them to kick a field goal to make it a 4-point game, they had no chance of tying it down the stretch. A field goal wasn't going to work, so they had to score a touchdown in order to win. And, I mean, it proved that I think that sequence really, really helped Alabama, and you got to give credit to the crowd, man. They were absolutely rocking.
Crowd noise was insane. That matchup between Alabama and A&M. But, guys, even after the win for the Crimson Tide, if you looked at the latest AP Top 25 poll that came out today, Bama drops from 1 to 3 in the poll behind Ohio State at number 2 and Georgia at number 1. Now, of course, to Nick Saban, polls mean absolutely nothing. For the players, polls mean absolutely nothing. For us in the media, it can be a fun little talking point here and there. But, Justin, was it a surprise for you? Was it a shock to you to wake up this morning and you look at the AP poll and you see Alabama, even after a win and a win over an SEC opponent, dropped from 1 to 3 in the poll there?
Yeah, it was a bit surprising because AP poll was voted on by people, and I think people understand that Jalen Miro was Alabama's starting quarterback going into that game. Bryce Young did not play, and they still were able to get the win. And you can make an argument that Jalen Miro was the reason that Texas A&M kept that game that close. So I think you had to factor that in. Of course, they don't have to factor it in if they don't want to. So I wouldn't say like bother anybody or anything. It was a bit shocking in a way to see they drop down to number 3 just based on that fact. Even moving forward when the college football playoff rankings are released, they consistently say that we do factor in that so-and-so player was hurt when they played this game. So I think it was a bit surprising in a way to see them drop down to number 3. But like you said, Steven, it doesn't matter to Alabama players and coaches. It doesn't even matter for the college football playoffs either. Those rankings can look totally different when they are released. So it's just like you said, a good talking point. And I was kind of a little bit taken back by the fact they did drop.
Yeah, I'm kind of with like the players, coaches, and fans. I don't really care about if the Alabama's dropped or not in the AP poll, because look, the college football playoff has kind of made these rankings a little bit irrelevant. So those rankings are really the only ones that matter. And as long as you're in the top 4, you got a shot. So yeah, look, Alabama had a close game against an unranked opponent. Ohio State's looked really good. Georgia's the defending national champion. They move ahead of Alabama. Who cares? I'm sorry, but it's the only rankings that matter are the ones that come out at the end of the year. So I think right now it doesn't really matter.
My man Pat going with it is what it is. I know a lot of people in the chat now are asking about JoJo Earl and Tyler Harrell. JoJo Earl played. He wasn't targeted in the game, but he did play. I did see a number 10 offensively, quite a bit there on the field. Tyler Harrell, at this point, I don't know when he plays, because the A&M game was slotted for kind of his moment and opportunity. I know when I looked at the depth chart for the A&M game, he was right behind Jermaine Burton as the ex-wide receiver. But at this point, I don't know when Harrell plays. I know he's been out there practicing. He's been out there going through warm-ups. He's healthy. I just don't know when at this point that we could see Tyler Harrell out there on the field.
Yeah, I think this is kind of difficult. This is when us not being able to go to practice proves to be difficult, because Tyler Harrell could be back at practice, but we don't know to what degree. Like, is he participating in all the drills or not? Is he completely back and healthy? Is he getting a full grasp on the playbook? We don't know. So he is out there warming up. It's probably getting closer and closer, or maybe he is back and ready to go at game speed, but he's just still got to, show that consistency and practice again on the field. So it's kind of up in the air right now, like you said, about when he's actually going to get on the field and contribute.
Yeah, I think a lot of Alabama fans are just excited to see him finally, after transferring from Louisville, just based on what he was expected to bring to their offense, explosiveness and speed, which is what they lost in Jameson Williams. And we all know how a guy like that can change an offense. So I'm pretty sure Alabama fans are going to continue to watch out for him. We did see him in warm-ups, going through warm-ups, but like you said, Pat, that is the disadvantage of not being able to go to practice. So we're not sure if he is looking comfortable, is he with the limp or anything, but I think just looking at Alabama's offense on Saturday, even if they were playing, I'm not sure how much of an impact they would have been able to make this based on the struggles that Alabama's offense was going through. But we will definitely keep our eyes on if he's able to play this week in particular, if Bryce Young is able to come back, which is what I think we expect at this moment.
Absolutely. So, guys, let's look at this before we get into Prize Picks and the great stuff that they got over there, our guys at Prize Picks. And looking at just the receivers, I know Coach Saban talked about it, didn't really have an opportunity to make a lot of plays out there on the field. Jermaine Burton did have a touchdown. Corey Brooks had a nice crossing route for a touchdown. Good to see Brooks get back in there. Cameron Latu did have a touchdown catch as well. As we look at Tennessee heading into next week, we'll break down more of Tennessee on Thursday. But starting off with you, Justin, I mean, against the A&M and then moving forward to Tennessee, can Alabama have a receiver or a group of receivers that are just being able to make those types of plays? I know you mentioned before that if you're going to do something, you got to do it now that we're in the meat of the SEC schedule. But does Alabama have that receiver that's got the mindset of something got to give right now?
I think we still have that question heading into this week. I'm not sure if Alabama has confidence in a certain group or combination of wide receivers, because we see a different combination almost every week. Ja'Cory Brooks is in at the start of the game. Sometimes he comes in later in the game. He makes a has a fantastic game earlier in the season, comes back the next game and drops a couple of passes. You guys can answer in the chat, but I don't think we can just point at one Alabama wide receiver like we did in the past and just point at them before the game. Hey, I know this guy is going to have a great game. He's going to come out and do some great things. I don't think at this point in the season we can look at anybody on Alabama's roster at that wide receiver position say that we know that this guy's going to have a great game. So I think moving forward, I think one of those guys and a group of those guys have to consistently step up because Alabama has not had a consistent pass game in terms of having a great wide receiver just play great week in and week out. So I think it's something that we just have to watch, something that we are waiting to watch. And once we see it, I think we'll definitely give it its due, but we haven't seen it just yet.
Yeah, they've been really inconsistent on the receivers room. And look, this year they probably just don't have that kind of alpha guy who can just take over a game like a Jamison Williams or a John Mechie. And that makes it, and they use a lot of different combinations, like you brought up, Justin, of receivers, young and old, transfers, and for 3 or 4 year players at Alabama. And it probably makes it a tough scout for opposing teams, but for Alabama, they kind of got to be scratching their heads, being like, we can't find anyone really that's going to give a consistent performance week in and week out. So, Alabama's been on an incredible run of super talented first round picks at wide receiver, and it just might be an off year for them in terms of having a top tier player. But even with all these inconsistencies, they're still finding a way to move the football, and I think that's in the ground game has really turning into something that the Alabama can lean on until they can really figure it out through the air.
Absolutely. So with that being said, we now get into our guys at Prize Picks who have done an incredible job setting up the fun, setting up the football fantasy, the projections, and allowing us to be entertained where football is concerned. And so, Pat, what do our guys at Prize Picks got for us?
Yeah, so at Prize Picks, all first-time users that deposit and use our promo code will receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. So if you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100 back. Prize Picks is the best way to have action on the game in states like California, Florida, Texas, Georgia, and over 70% of the United States. Prize Picks is currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. So how does it work? You pick 2 to 5 players, and if they go score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. At Prize Picks, you aren't competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's and women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. Prize Picks entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Prize Picks is safe and offers fast withdrawals. Download Prize Picks today and play daily fantasy sports with us. Make sure to use the promo code BAMA100. Again, that's BAMA100 when you sign up. And guys, if you haven't downloaded Prize Picks yet, we highly recommend it because it's a lot of fun to play the odds and try to project who's going to have a big game.
Yeah, definitely a great app. Be sure to download that Prize Picks app. Great daily fantasy app for any college football fan. Alabama fans in particular get an opportunity to download the app and play along with us and play along with Alabama football as you project where Alabama players will finish at the end of each game each week. So be sure to download that app. Promo code BAMA100. Get that 100% deposit match.
Absolutely. Check out those guys at Prize Picks and have fun with that right there. Well, fellas, before we wrap things up here, I guess we can do a little bit of a painting foreshadowing of the Alabama-Tennessee matchup. That next week at Rocky Top, next week at Neyland Stadium in Knoxville, it's going to be crazy. I mean, wow. I mean, you look at what Josh Heupel has done up there, Hendon Hooker at quarterback. They got weapons on both sides of the football. For the first time in a while, we're talking about in a while, you got Alabama fans who are nervous about the Tennessee game. You got Bama fans who are going, this ain't your old Tennessee that you could just roll up and whoop up on. Heupel has done a really nice job here with this program. This is why a lot of Bama fans hoping that Bryce Young can be prepared to go here against the Volunteers. So starting off with you, Pat, in facing Tennessee, what could be the biggest trouble point that Alabama's got to have worked on this week when you talk about facing a much improved rolling Tennessee team?
Yeah, Josh Heupel's done a great job at Tennessee, and I think me and Justin talked before the show that this may be the first time in our lifetime, me and Justin specifically. I know, Steven, you're a few years older than us, but this might be the first time in our lifetime that this game's actually very, very meaningful for both teams and has a lot riding on it. So, yeah, I mean, the biggest area that Alabama needs to work on this week before it goes to Rocky Top, Bryce Young's shoulder. Get that thing good and straight because they're going to really, really need him. I don't know if I know we talked about, there was some good and bad with Jalen Milroe, but I think Tennessee's the type of team where if you give them several opportunities to score, they will, because this offense can score with the best of them.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this matchup. I think Waylon put in the chat that this is like the first time in 32 years where both teams are like really highly ranked heading into this matchup. And you said it, Pat. It's the first time in my life where we've seen this game have a lot of momentum and a lot of talking points heading into the matchup. And I think as far as where Tennessee can give Alabama trouble, I think it starts with Hendon Hooker. I think he's a great quarterback who can deliver some great passes. So I think Alabama has done a great job putting pressure on guys over the last couple of weeks. I think that is something they're definitely going to try to do against Hooker and Tennessee. But I think Alabama's defensive backs will be tested for sure, similar to them going back to, I think, the Texas game, where I feel they got the biggest test this season for when Quinn Ewers was into the football game. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see this matchup. It feels like it's been such a long time. It feels like that old school rivalry. I think more old school Alabama fans have a lot more respect for this rivalry than some of the newer fans. So, yeah, I'm excited to see Alabama and Tennessee in a matchup that means so much, a top 10 matchup. A lot of people are watching it. Both teams undefeated. Both teams have great quarterbacks. So, yeah, I'm really excited to watch it.
I saw a lot of these games with Philip Farmer. I saw a lot of these games in the Derek Dooley era. I saw the 2009 Alabama-Tennessee with Lane Kiffin. Saw quite a few of these matchups right here. Peyton Manning, the Clawson boys. It's been a long ride here in this Alabama-Tennessee rivalry. But we look at this week upcoming right here. Bryce Young, Hendon Hooker, Nick Saban, Josh Heupel should be a fun one in Neyland. But that's going to do it for here, folks. The Bama Elite Touchdown. Alabama Magazine here on YouTube, just recapping Alabama, Texas A&M, the things that stood out, the defense stepping up, playing their heart out. Some good from Jalen Milroe, some things he can improve on, but he'll get those things in order. And what can we see in this matchup coming up here with Tennessee? Well, as always, folks, we'll check you out Thursday to break down more of the Bama-Tennessee matchup. Until next time, this is the Bama Elite.